have taken a tremendous amount of time on your part to do this. I mean, were you doing like arrangements and things like that?
I didn't do arrangements. I had a fellow who he and his brother, they were trumpet and trombone joined, and he was an expert in that, and he did all my arrangements, and he did some terrific work. And his last name was Pugh. I don't even remember his first name anymore.
Art, I'm curious, how did you settle on the Art Wayne band as opposed to Art Hoch or whatever?
Because that was my name, Art Wayne.
Oh,
Arthur Wayne Hoch.
I know, but why do you use your middle name, like as your last name?
Well, that was during the time of Wayne King, you remember? You don't remember, you're too young. But I liked the idea of using my name, so I suggested Art Wayne. So I had stands built with Art Wayne printed on them for every member of the orchestra so they could put their music and use it. So that came in very handy, the name Art Wayne. And then I had cards made, and I had brochures made.
Did you guys travel at all, or did you do all your playing right in Philadelphia?
No, we went to New York occasionally. I played, my biggest job was with, in those days, Little Jack Little was a big orchestra in New York City. I don't know if you ever heard of him. But his name was Little Jack Little, and he had a big band. And we got a double. In other words, they played with a New York band and a Philadelphia band. We were the Philadelphia band, of course. And at that time, I think I might have had about a dozen people in my band, including singers. I had a girl and a boy. The boys were always friends of mine who sang.
I'm told you were on the radio at one time. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, we played for WHAT in Philadelphia. I think that was the numbers. And WCAU. But we would play every week at a certain time. It didn't last long because it was a nuisance going down there and getting ready and play for music of that sort. Meant preparing a program and all that. That got in the way. So that didn't last long.
Let me ask you, at the height of this, what did you enjoy most about having the band?
Well, of course, my initial interest and love of music helped me. And I played the piano at the beginning in the orchestra. And then I got a young man who played the piano better than I did. So I hired him to join the band, and he joined, and he was very good, better than I was. So I enjoyed my orchestra. And
I'm sorry.
then I was offered the station band at WOR in Newark, New Jersey. They wanted to hire us as a permanent band. In those days, radio stations, big radio stations, had bands. So that was quite an offer, and the band would have to be pretty good for them to even consider it. So in those days, I guess we were pretty good.
What happened with that offer? Did you guys decide not to take it, or?
I decided not to take it, and the fellows told me, if several of them in the band, if I didn't accept this offer for their future, they were going to leave me. So I said, well, then as of now, and I made up my mind just at a moment's notice, said I'm going to give up my band. So I gave up my band. I gave all my stands and music and all to the brothers that I referred to, and they went off and formed another band. I don't know whatever happened to that. I was never interested. I was glad I was out of it. It just took too much of my time. I had other things I wanted to do.
How long did the band last? How old were you when it finally broke up?
Oh, I was in college. And I guess it was at the beginning of my college. It wasn't long.
Maybe 3 years or something?
2 years.
2 years even.
Yeah.
When you got the offer, did you have an initial excited reaction, or was it just right away you didn't want to do it?
No, because I had a good job with RCA. I was in their auditing department, and that meant a lot to me to have a good job. I was married. I had a child.
Well, hold on a second. I feel we may be getting mixed up in our time. How old were you when you got married?
Oh, 27.
Yeah, so that sounds like it's a little bit later.
Yeah. You're right. That was a bit later.
Yeah.
My life is a sort of going around in circles anyhow.
Pretty typical. So you say you were in college when the band broke up, or was it long later after that it broke up?
No, it would have been in college.
Okay. Well, tell me one thing. I wanted to ask you about college. Were you the first person in your family who went to college?
Yes, I was the first person in my family to go to college.
How did that come about?
Through school, through high school, my professor in, I forget what course it was, but he was interested in all his pupils, and he suggested we all consider going to high school so that we could get a better job and live a better life, which I believed, and my mother wanted me to do it. She wanted me to go to college very badly. So the only one I could afford was Temple University, and couldn't afford to go to Penn. So I went to Temple University, and I worked. My mother worked even. She worked at a florist shop as taking care of bills.
What kind of work were you doing during that time?
I was traveling. I was in, when I was with RCA, I traveled.
This is in college while you're doing that, or?
No, I guess I'm a little confused there.
Were you living at home when you went to college? Or?
Yes, I lived at home. And I started college, and I worked every day, worked weekends, to help my mother uh, run the house and pay my tuition. And then my brother came along several years later, and he was pretty smart in electrical engineering, and he picked Penn. Well, boy, that meant a much higher tuition. So my mother and I decided we would try and send him. I would work, continue to work, and she worked. Of course, my father worked, but he never had a real good job, but enough to maintain us in our household.
Judy was saying she thought you might have worked in grocery stores during this time. Does that sound right to you?
Oh yes, that's the way I earned money when I was going to college. I worked in shops on Germantown Avenue, grocery shops. I worked in the Acme. I worked in A&P. I worked wherever I could make money. Most times I worked till midnight on Saturdays just to get enough money so we could keep my brother in college.
I'm gonna take one more pause. That the Depression would have been kicking in. Was that something that affected your family in any direct way?
Well, my father always had a job, but I don't know that the Depression really made any difference to us. We didn't have much coming in anyhow. So it didn't really make any difference.
When your brother was getting ready to go to college, were you out of college yourself? Or?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Judy had written me some notes, and she said that you basically gave a fair amount of your salary to try to help your brother get through college.
Yeah, I gave everything to my mother because she was paying all the bills. So whatever I earned, I gave to her. She gave me an allowance a week, even after I was going to college. But it didn't bother me any. Money coming in and going out never was a big interest in my life. I made money in the orchestra when I had the orchestra, but I gave most of it away, mostly to my parents. Because in those days I didn't have much interest in the other sex. After my brother was finished college, everything made a difference then.
Tell me about was RCA your first job after college, or did you have any other jobs before that?
Yes, I worked my first job out of college was for Caruso and Sons in Chestnut Hill, who had a big market, and they served the wealthy in Chestnut Hill mainly, and I did everything for them. I kept all their books. I did all their accounting. I didn't have any work at the store or anything, but I did all their work. I even took their children to school in the morning. They went to Catholic schools, and I delivered them one by one to the different schools where they were going. So that was part of my job. And they treated me very well. They really liked me.
Now, how long were you there? Did you go to RCA after Caruso?
Yes, I was only at Crusoe's probably 2 years, I would think, at the most.
You said that the RCA job was a really good job. It was one that you
Oh
liked
yeah,
going
I
on
had
to.
a good job.
How did you come to get that job?
Through DuPont, through Temple in Placement Bureau. Yeah.
Tell me, I want to ask you one last question. You said you weren't that interested in women when you were younger. Did you have any girlfriends or do any dating?
No, I didn't. Did very little.
Is it because you were shy or just weren't interested?
I just wasn't interested. Who had more opportunity than I did when I was president of the Luther League at church, and had all these girls who were members of the Luther League, and we did plays and all. I was a performer even. It was just part of my life that I enjoyed doing. Girls weren't much different than boys in those days. So.
How so when you say that?
Huh?
When you say that girls aren't much different from boys, how so?
Well, to me, that I treated a girl as well as I did a boy. It didn't interest me. I don't know why. It did later on, but then it didn't make any difference.
Well, how old were you when you met your first wife?
I'd say 25.
Any strong first memories of her?
Oh, she came from a lovely home, and I loved her parents. They were really nice people. They were English. But I don't have many memories since my divorce many years ago.
Yeah, I understand. Do you remember how you guys did meet? Do you happen to remember how you guys did meet, you and your first wife?
Yes, on the tennis court in Swarthmore. I love to play tennis. My friend Arnold Luder liked to play tennis. So he said, my girlfriend and I want to play doubles. And I said, well, I don't have anybody to bring along. So he said, well, we'll bring a girl. So they brought a girl along, Mary Stewart. That's how I met her.
One thing that came out is I understand you had 4 children together.
Yeah.
Any memories of just putting your family together?
Any memories of putting them together? They were an interesting lot, and still are today.
I've got a couple questions I wanted to ask you. I understand that some of your kids got some fun nicknames, like Stewart was nicknamed Star. Do you remember how that?
Oh yeah, I remember that very clearly. When we brought him home from the hospital, his older sister, which was the oldest child, Peggy, thought his eyes resembled stars. So she started to call him Star. And that's his nickname today. Star.
Was June always Junebug, or did that come up along the way?
Oh, that just grew upon her, Junebug. I imagine her sisters and brother probably had a part in the naming her that. Or no, my mother probably did that. Mimi. Mimi was a great influence upon my children.
How so?
Well, for a while, right before my divorce, June was just a baby, and we were having our difficulties together. And my mother loved Junebug, so she would go and stay with her in there right during our hectic time together. She lived with my mother and father, I would say, for over a half a year, maybe up to a year. She just lived with them and didn't want to come home, which made it easier for me, of course. But I always enjoyed my wife's parents. They were really nice people.
Art, how about you with your children? Did you have much chance to do things with them? Was it, different? Was there anything about raising them that you most enjoyed?
Yes, I raised them to make sure that they went to camp every year, and not just for a week. I'd send them for a month. So that costs money too, but I was working on the side, earning money with my band or other ways that I worked for different people doing accounting work. I worked for the neighbor across the street. I helped him form a corporation, Yale Corporation. He had some investments. He had a investment of a grocery store, of all things, in New York. And I used to go up there and look over the books and make sure they were giving the proper figures to the owner.
I want to come back and sort of talk one last question about RCA. How long did you work there, and do you keep doing the same job, and what eventually made you leave?
I was hired by RCA as a auditor, and my work was all in auditing different organizations of RCA. The job that created my leaving RCA was they sent me to Chicago to audit the books of RCA Incorporation of Illinois, or whatever it was called in those days. I was there. That was the time Peggy was born, my oldest. And I wanted to come home. I was there for 7 weeks, because that was a big audit, especially to leave it up to one person. Occasionally they'd send somebody else out, but I was there mainly myself to complete that audit of those books. And that was a massive job. Well, I called my boss, immediate boss, who was the auditing manager of RCA, and I asked him if I could come home for at least a week or so to visit, because I just had a new child. And he said, no, I'm sorry, we can't afford that. So I stayed out there, and I felt I was under duress to work there. And it upset me. So when I came home, I made sure that I was able to buy my wife new clothes, and I had that all covered in my report as entertainment, meals. Oh, it was the worst. As the auditor said later on, we have never seen a travel report like this. I said, well, that's what you made me do. I just had to live it up. I had to do something to entertain myself. I was there weekends. So he said, all right. So he apparently showed the report to his immediate supervision, and they said, transfer him to general ledger. I never forgot that. Transfer him to general ledger, which was a common accounting group. So I said, when will this become effective? And he said, tomorrow morning. I said, well, I won't be here because I resign as of this minute. So I resigned. I got my check for what they owed me for my trip to Chicago. So it worked out fine. I went to DuPont, got a job right away. I was employed within, I think, 3 or 4 days at DuPont by the auditor of DuPont. So I was interviewed by the top echelon.
And you stayed with DuPont pretty much for
Oh yeah,
most
the rest of my career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I had good positions. I kept getting better positions as years went on. Finally, I had a job with textile fibers, which made Dialon, Orlon, Dacron, those miracle fibers. And I had a good job.
Before we're going to switch tapes in a minute, but I wanted to come back to a couple of notes that Judy had written me when I was asking you about things you did with your kids. One thing she said was it was very important for you that they went to college, and another, she said you took them to New England every summer. Do you have any memories of either of those things?
I didn't take them to New England. Did I?
When you and Mother married, we all went too. But you'd go, remember we used to have to walk around the lake to the artesian well to get water and have to get to bathe in the lake?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
No TV, no phone, nothing?
Yeah, all the kids went to Halls Lake. That's right, I remember that. They were very happy days. Our summers at Halls Lake, I rented this cabin from folks who lived in Wells River. Mrs. George. And she saved it for us every year. And even my mother and father were there one year at the early years. And then gradually, as the children came along, we all went up there, including my wife. So we really enjoyed that time up there. And that's what got me interested in buying property, which I eventually did. We bought, we looked at property. I wouldn't say we bought them right away, but eventually we did. We bought a large property in the town of Corinth,
Is that Vermont?
Vermont. It was over 100 acres. It was an old dairy farm. So that was really my first adventure with my wife, Bee.
Art, I need to switch tapes here for a minute. I mean, the timing is good.
Mary first, and my parents. And then as the children came along, and you kids grew up in age,
Cabinet right in the refrigerator is the, are the glasses.
you gradually it sort of shifted as to who occupied Halls Lake. And when you were there, I'm wondering how long ago after that. Oh, that would have been at least 6 years after our marriage that we went and
Art, believe it or not, you're on camera again.
okay.
You said something right when I was still setting up equipment, during that hour that I was putting things together, that when you met B, it was like the first time you'd ever actually believed in love at first sight. Tell me about this.
Oh, that was the most beautiful thing that probably ever happened in my life. My youngest son was having difficulty in Swarthmore, its first year, I guess. He was really having difficulty, and his teacher called me, Miss Daltrey, whoever she was, called me and said, "We have to have a conference." I said, "Well, then the conference is going to have to be at times when I can make it, because I work in Wilmington, Delaware, and I go down there every day, and I don't get home till 6 o'clock or 6:30. So she said, "Well, you wouldn't be able then to make it during the day." I said, "No, I cannot make it